Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it, man. I'm super excited to have our conversation. So, how are you doing today?
Razel, there is nowhere else I'd rather be than talking with you right now. So I'm doing pretty great.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man.
It's,
And yeah, we are different parts of the world, but yeah, made it happen to like having a conversation and going to learn more about your perspective on like a different side of our life. Like we're going to talk about more like who we are and like how to define and how find out ourselves like who we are. We always try to be like a someone else, so we are going to have like a discussion more into it. So before we get into like our audience would love to know more about you, who you are, and how you go into like a coaching and consulting businesses. And yeah, let's get started. Can you hear me well?
yeah, so I'll tell you my story. My name
Yeah.
is Jonathan Domsky, and uh, I hear you find out that there seems to be a little bit of a connection issue, but
Yeah.
it's fine enough. Yeah, my name is Jonathan Domsky. My business is Untangled Coaching. I'm a business and life coach for entrepreneurs. My story, my career starts the week that I graduated. Hey, so are we back?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so I was telling the story. It was, I wasn't expecting that I'd meet the woman who's now my wife 3 weeks in and get engaged 7 months later, but that's what happened. And we
Right.
were used to spending all of our time together. And when I came back to Chicago after 17 months in China, when she came to the US for the first time, we wanted to keep doing that. We wanted to be able to go back to China,
Yeah.
spend time together, and that just seemed impossible to do if we both had 9 to 5 jobs working for someone else with 2-3 weeks vacation a year. So we decided we needed to become entrepreneurs. I was very much an accidental
Right.
entrepreneur. Both my parents were professionals. I didn't know any business people growing up, but this is what we had to do to be together. So I'm a learner, I'm a reader. I've read over 3,000 books. I just read anything that people recommended to me about becoming a business person. I would talk
Wow.
to anyone
Three
who,
3,000 books, right?
yeah, I'd talk
Yeah.
to anyone who had anything to offer me. And I learned how to be an entrepreneur. After a couple of years, I joined what's now EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. It was YEO at the time.
Right.
Uh, Such a great organization. EO taught me everything I know about being an entrepreneur. And Rosal, if you had asked me 15 years ago, am I passionate about my business? I would have told you yes. If you had asked me, does selling fun, practical, unique children's accessories, which is what our business was, did it make my heart sing?
Right.
To say, no, not really. I'd learned how to be an efficient administrator and
Yeah.
a inspiring leader and all that sort of stuff. But the highlight of my week was the 10 or so hours that I would spend in meetings. I love meetings because good meetings, a lot of people have bad meetings, I never have bad meetings, but
Yeah.
good meetings are where problems are solved. It's where I could help people accomplish their goals. It's where they come in confused and frustrated and they leave inspired and with clear direction. I designed my whole work life around meetings. I was running all these different meetings in our company. And after a couple decades, the company was pretty highly optimized. I was working from home a couple hours a day. I go into the office once a week for a glorious day of face-to-face meetings. But I was looking for something else that would help just express my entrepreneurial energies.
Yeah.
Tried a couple things. They were good, but they didn't light me up until a single day. It was January 31st, 2020, right before anyone had heard of what COVID was.
Oh, yeah.
I took a walk from my home to Lake Michigan up to the Northwestern University campus. Like I've done hundreds of times to clear my head, process the week. But this day, as soon as the water comes into view, I feel like the ground starts to shift beneath my feet. I was literally unsteady. I just sit down.
Mhm.
And after a few minutes, when I had steadied myself, I just realized in that moment that I can't continue to devote my life to work that doesn't light me up. And I
Yeah.
took a 2-hour walk and I cleared my head. I came back, I talked to my wife, who'd been on her own parallel journey the last few years, that she
Right.
wanted more operational
Yeah.
responsibility for the business. And we came up with a plan right then and there. there for her to, it is the best thing I've ever done. There's such a difference between doing what you were born for versus work that you're merely really good at and enjoy.
So you had the calling
And
of
it's
doing
been,
the work you had, and you found out like your passion and your why for doing like who you are, you wanted to be. And obviously it took you like all of your life to figure out, like the last couple of years to get to where you wanted to be, right?
yeah.
So it was like a long process. So we oftentimes as an individual, we try to rush things and not be patient enough to finding like why we want to be and accomplish. So yeah, we're gonna learn more about that and in the topic, which is like finding who you are.
Yeah.
So we oftentimes like you mentioned like you're entrepreneur, your parents, they was an entrepreneur, they were professionals. But what we have, like if you're born in a professional family, you tend to be like be a professional. If your dad is your doctor or engineer or like a teacher, you tend to be someone like that. If he's your parents are like more into business entrepreneurship, then you tend to be something like that. And I came with like a similar kind of background. My dad was an entrepreneur, business owner, so I think it's in my blood kind of thing. And he actually like I've been to like being a professional teacher as well, but I didn't really enjoy it. Then I quit and started my businesses, and now I find it like this is why I want to be. Like I don't want to be employed by someone, and this is who I am. But actually it took like a few years, and that's why I got one of the podcast episode about how to choose your career as well on that. And tell us a little bit about like how someone can find out who they are and why is it important for us to finding who we are.
Yeah. Well, it took me 20 years to figure out what I was born to do. But if you have a guide, it's much faster and much easier. And we live in a world where there is no right way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
If you were, so you were born in Bangladesh, correct?
Yeah.
So if you were born in Bangladesh 200 years ago, if your father was a farmer, you would be a farmer. And there wouldn't be any discussion about it. Right? There wouldn't be anything to say. If you're born a Muslim, you would be a Muslim because that's just the way it is. If you grew up in medieval Spain, it'd be the same thing. If you were born Catholic, you're going to be Catholic. If you're, if your father is a soldier, you're going to be a soldier. That's not the world that we live in anymore. We live in a postmodern world where it's up to each individual to find their path. And in fact, that makes it very difficult, especially for immigrant families or people who are living in a different culture.
Yeah.
That there's a way that things are supposed to be, and then we raise our children that you have to go to school, you have to be an engineer, you have to do whatever whatever you want to do, and maybe that's the right path for you, but maybe it's not. And when you're living someone else's purpose, when you're living your life according to society's standards, to your parents' standards, whatever it is, if it's not the same as yours, then it makes us miserable. Maybe we have conventional success, but we have to end the day by just throwing ourselves in front of the TV for 3 hours just to feel normal again, or to have a drink or 3. Those are all signs that we're out of alignment. There's or anyone really, but I primarily work with entrepreneurs who work so hard to have the life and business that they want, don't have the results.
Yeah.
And the first and most important place to start is, do you know who you are? And who you are, it's a 3-legged stool. There's 3 components to it in no particular order. Well, I'll put them in order. The easiest place to start is with your personal core values.
Right.
Think of so if you're familiar with Simon Sinek, he's popularized this idea.
Yeah, it's author.
The outside is your what. What is it that you do? And Simon Sinek, who's been so just so impactful in popularizing this work, he's actually kind of dismissive about the what. He says nobody cares about the what. We'll get more to that in a minute. And then one level in is the how. Your core values, the way. And what are core values? Core values are the way that you believe that life should be lived, how you believe that life should be lived. There's no right or wrong core values. There's just your core values. It's a mix of your upbringing and your DNA and your experiences. And then in the center is your why you do what you do. And I like to just define each of those and just give your listeners just a few tips on how to do these things. Your how, your core values, is the easiest to do. It's pretty straightforward. It starts basically by just asking yourself, what is enduringly important to me? What are the most important things in my life? Now, very important, this is what you feel is most important to you. It's not what you think is most important to you. You may think that eating right and exercising and getting in shape is really important. And of course, your life would be better if you did those things. But if you find it difficult to eat well and go to the gym and all that sort of stuff, it's not a core value.
Yeah, you won't be able to do that, right?
Yeah, your life might be better.
Yeah,
if you did those things. But it's not something that's enduringly important to you. Core values are not aspirational. They're who you are right now, at your best, when life is exactly the way that it should be. And once you've identified those things, and I was working with a client once, and I always ask them, if you've done any self-work, to send me what you did. She sent me a 40-page document with, it must have had 100 values in it.
right.
It was all really good stuff.
Yeah.
There was nothing bad in there. There was nothing that I would say like, oh, like don't work out, like don't be honest. It wasn't anything like that. But if everything's important, then nothing's important. We need to choose, and 3 to 7 core values are what's right for most people. They should be easy to memorize. The next step is to put them in order of priority. When we feel guilt, when we feel doubt, it's usually because of one of two things. Either our life is out of alignment with our values, or we have two values that are in conflict. So I'll tell a story. So again, they're all in order of priority so that you can make good decisions. My second priority, my second core value, is to accept the world as it is and find joy in it.
Yeah.
Surrender to what is. My 7th core value is to appreciate beauty. When my son was maybe 4 years old, we went there in Chicago. We have a very beautiful botanic gardens.
Yeah.
And our family, we went to the botanic gardens, and I was looking forward to seeing all the beautiful flowers in bloom. As soon as we get in, my son, he sees a sign for this new children's center that had opened.
Yeah.
So we arrive at the botanic gardens. I'm looking forward to seeing the flowers, and I just feel this tug on my shirt that there's a sign for a new children's center that would open. It was opened, but he's insistent, and you know how small children are. It's I guess I could steamroll him and just pick him up, but it would be a miserable time.
Yeah.
So we go to the children's center, and it's closed. But in front of the children's center, there's a half-acre of hilly, green, grassy mounds, like a dimpled green golf ball. And we spent the next hour with me chasing him up and down and playing hide and seek. It was such a delightful day. And it was only possible because I accepted what is. We found joy.
Yeah.
And that was a higher priority for me than appreciating beauty. If I had not done this work, if I had not known that there's certain things that are just more important to me than others, then it could have been a ruined afternoon where, we saw the flowers, but he was sulking and difficult the whole time. Or I went to the children's center, but I was thinking like, this is such a waste. Like, I didn't come here for some stupid kids program. But it was great. And it was only possible because I knew it was most important to me, and then I acted accordingly. Once you know what your core values are, once you have them in order of priority, so there's no room for guilt and doubt.
Right.
The next step is to write them into full sentences, action-oriented sentences that you could keep yourself accountable to. So my number 1 value is loving kindness. And that's nice, but it's not something that I could keep myself accountable to. Like, was I loving in this last week? I guess so. But no, we need to say, what do we actually mean by that?
Right.
So
Yeah.
my top value is loving kindness. I lead with love, compassion, and acceptance, not with hurt or anger or fear.
Yeah.
And then the last step in living our values, not just, a lot of people do this exercise and they write out their values and they look great and they're like, yeah, I nailed it. And then they put it in a drawer, or maybe even they post it next to their computer, but then they're done and they never look at them again.
Yeah.
That's
That's how we do.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nice to have that self-knowledge, but it's not very useful to living a life that's easy, meaningful, and joyous. The most powerful and simple, easy to do tool that will make your life more easy, meaningful, and joyous is to take your core value statements
Hmm.
and then once a week, or you do it once a month if you want, do a process called walk the talk. State your values one at a time
Yeah.
and ask yourself, what was a specific time this last week when I fully lived this value? It's not enough just to say, yeah, I was honest, or even not enough to say like, yeah, I guess I led with love, compassion, and acceptance. So could I think of a real example when I did that? And if you don't, what do you want to do to make sure that you do it next week?
Yeah.
And then ask, were there any times when I fell short? Maybe I had the opportunity to lead with love, compassion, and acceptance, but I chose hurt or anger and fear instead.
Right.
Or maybe I had the opportunity, but I didn't realize until it was too late. And once you've done that, what do you want to learn? What do you want to do differently next week? What do you want to keep doing next week? What do you want to improve for next week? And look at where you're spending your time and money.
Mm.
Do they reflect a commitment to your values, or do they reflect a commitment to something else? That's how we become who we were meant to be.
Yeah.
That's core values. That's the how. It's how
How we can do that. Yeah.
you believe your life should be
Yeah.
lived. In the center of that circle is your why. What is your purpose? There's lots of definitions of purpose, but the one that I like is
Yeah.
the intersection of the way that you feel compelled to show up in the world, the way that you feel compelled to contribute,
Mhm.
with the way that you seek to impact the world to make it, again, the way that it should be.
Yeah.
The way that you finding your why is a little bit harder. It usually requires a guide, but the process is pretty straightforward. You tell your stories. What are your most impactful life stories? Your highest highs, your lowest lows. That's a window. Your highs, your accomplished, your proudest moments, the times when you were a great friend and you just felt unbelievably good. The moments when a teacher, a mentor, a parent, someone who you love just changed the way that you think about the world. These are moments that reflect life exactly the way it should be. Again, according to you, based on your
Yeah.
DNA and your culture and your upbringing and experiences. Your worst moments are the way that life absolutely should not be. It's the opposite of your why, equally useful
Mhm.
towards finding out what it is. And once you have 5, 10, a dozen stories, then you look for the themes. What were you thinking? What were you feeling at the time? What was your contribution? The
Mm.
people around you, how are they affected? When you find those themes, choose the one or two that keep repeating, the ones that just shout at you, that's who I am. And then you use that to make a draft why statement, starting with the way that you feel compelled to show up and then ending with the impact. So for me, my why
Yeah.
is to untangle the clutter obscuring our best, most authentic selves so that we see a clear path to a life that's easy, meaningful, and joyous. That's who I am. It's who I am in my work. It's who I am as a parent. It's who I am with my friends. Your why is not specific to one
place.
part
Yeah.
of your life.
Yeah.
Different parts of it may manifest in different parts, but it's just who you are.
Yeah.
And then similarly, do a walk the talk. State your why out loud and ask in the last week, what are specific examples when I learn what keep the same, and look at how you spend your time and money. Does it reflect against your why, or does something else? And if you really want to go deep, such a powerful question. How could it be more so? Pick apart your why and ask for each part of it, how could it be more so? There's a a client that I've worked with. His name is Russ Rosenzweig. He is the founder of the expert witness industry. If you're a
Right.
lawyer, you need an expert witness, you could call Russ. He'll find the world's greatest expert on whatever it is. Russ's why, and I'm paraphrasing, but Russ's why is to recognize recognize and affirm excellence,
Mm-hmm.
so that people are inspired to do great things. So after we had Russ's why, I asked him, so what does it mean to recognize excellence? What's the greatest manifestation of that in your life? Well, Russ wants to be a positive whistleblower. Whenever he sees people performing excellently, whether it's a server in a restaurant, a street performer, it could be his wife's beautiful outfit or just a meal well made, he recognizes excellence. He tells them how great it is.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to affirm excellence? Well, again, when he sees someone doing great work, he tells them, like, this is who you are. And he writes notes to the people who matter most to them, their mother, their child, their boyfriend, whatever it is. He affirms their excellence. He's in the process of creating an Academy Award style event for his industry, just to recognize excellence in his industry. Again, we spent an hour brainstorming, like, each word, each phrase of his why. How could it be more so? It's a very powerful way to live the life that you were born for. Now, I started by telling you there's 3 legs to this stool. There's your core values, that's your how. There's your why. And then there's your what. Now, as entrepreneurs, a lot of us are taught that your what doesn't matter. That what really attracts your employees, what really attracts your customers is is especially your why.
Yeah.
Your how. And for a product, for a company, that's absolutely true. But you are a human being, Russell. You are not a product.
Yeah.
Your life is the what. The what's the third leg of the stool. It's usually the hardest one for people to identify. It takes some time. But there's exercises, there's frameworks that help you find it a lot faster than it took me without a guide. So let's start with a story. In Simon Sinek's book, Find Your Why, he tells the story of an Italian coffee making company called La Marzocco. They make high-end espresso machines and stuff like that. And apparently La Marzocco's why is to bring people together for great conversation or something like that. It has nothing to do with coffee. Now, if your why is very similar to that, if you think, oh, like, I love bringing people together for connection and great conversation too. And if your core values resonate with their core values, no doubt working for La Marzocco might be one of the best jobs you've ever had. But let's pretend that you hate coffee. It's bitter. You don't like it. You're a tea drinker. Don't work for a coffee company. Work for a tea company.
Yeah.
And your life will be so much better. So your why, your values, they could point a finger in the direction of your what.
What, yeah.
But they are different from your what. So how do you find your what? Well, first, let's define it. Again, there's many concepts, there's many definitions, many concepts, but the one that I like is that your what, like the thing that you were meant to do, is the intersection of what you love. It can't be something you're born for if you don't love it, right? What you're really good at, if you suck at it, don't, you might love singing in the shower, but if nobody likes hearing you, sing in the shower, but don't quit your job and start, singing on street corners. You have to love it. You have to be really good at it. You have to be able to be paid for it. Unless you're lucky enough to be supported by someone else, in order for it to be something that you were born to do, people need to be willing to pay you for it. Now, as entrepreneurs, it's typically an easier one because that's what we do. We start businesses and we find models to do these things. And then the last is, what does the world need? Most people, so these four circles. I know so many people who they have a job that it makes a lot of money. They're great to be paid for it. They're really good at it. They might even like it, might even love it. But if the world doesn't need it,
Yeah,
So
what's the point? Yeah.
it's not contributing to society, it feels empty. If you find something that you love, if you find something you're really good at, and you find something that the world needs, that's a mission. That's something that you're compelled to do. But if you can't be paid for it, it's not sustainable. Profit fuels purpose.
It's true.
In order to make an impact, we need money coming in so that we
Yeah.
just this model that I shared with you, like this is my life's work. If it wasn't, I might have shared it with like some close friends, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't have shared it with hundreds of
The
people
world.
like I have. Profit fuels purpose. You know, I mean, of course, if you're not good at something, then that's that can't be what you want. So what do we do? How do we find our life's purpose? So analytically, you can make a list of everything that you love and everything that you're good at and everything you be paid for and everything that the world needs, and see where there's overlap. If there's overlap in 2 or 3 of those things, is there a way to grow the other circle? If you found something that you love and you're good at and the world needs, can you develop a business around it so that you could be paid for it? If you found something that is that you're really good at, that you love, that that you could be paid for, but you feel the world doesn't need it, can you redefine it? A good friend of mine used to be in the business of buying distressed credit card debt. So
Right.
you owe money to the credit card company, you don't pay it, they try to collect, and then they sell it to
Okay. Yeah.
to a collection agency for pennies on the dollar. If you owe $100, he'll buy it
Yeah.
for like $4 or something like that. Most of which it's never collected, but that's why it's so cheap. When I first heard about this business, I thought, what a terrible business to be in. Like what? Right, what could be worse than calling people who can't pay their bills? I couldn't imagine a more soul-sucking, just terrible business until I visited his office for the first time. It was so positive. It was such a happy place. And his mission, the mission of his company, is that we expand access to financial services to marginal people who without it would never be able to borrow money. I mean, if the credit card companies couldn't sell their debt to him, they wouldn't give you a credit card if you had bad credit. And just in that light, it's incredibly meaningful. This is a positive boon for society. Can you redefine what you do? So with that model in mind, if you already know what you were born for, fantastic. If you're close, if you're purpose adjacent, then could you grow one of those circles? And if you're still not sure, then what do we do? Well, there's 2 things. Brazil, do you have a favorite food? Is there a food you really enjoy?
Yeah, I love curries.
You love curry.
Yeah.
When did you first learn that you loved curry?
I think about 11 years old.
When you were at 11 years old, and how did you discover that?
Because I tried a different kind of food, and
you tried it.
Yeah.
Before you had curry, you didn't know that you loved curry, and
No.
then you tried curry, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!"
Yeah.
It's the same thing with finding your what.
Yeah.
Try different things. Again, your why points a finger
Yeah.
in the right direction. See if it checks all these boxes, what you love and what you're good at and what the world needs and what you could be paid for. But you try things. And how do you know that this is it? And what do you do once you found it? And this is true of a 1-year-old. The first time that you see your child's eyes light up when they're doing something, maybe it's in sports, maybe they're playing an instrument, maybe it's math or history, like whatever it is, they will do something because they try it, and you'll see their eyes light up,
and they'll find it. Yeah, definitely.
Name it. Let's just pretend it's piano. You're like, wow, like you love piano. Celebrate it. This is awesome. Like music is just such a gift. And then after you've named it, after you've celebrated it, foster it, encourage it without any expectation. If you say like, oh, you love piano. You know what you need to do? You need to practice for 3 hours a day so that you can reach your potential. That's going to kill their passion.
Yeah.
So without expectation, but foster it, give them lessons. You know, my son is a guitarist. He's 13 now. He's played guitar since he was 7. And when he first started, I assumed it was a passing phase. We'd given him piano lessons a few years earlier. You know, it was okay. He just wasn't really into it. And it was summer, and he always liked his lessons, but he's such a social kid, and no amount of no lesson would ever be worth breaking a play date. Like
Yeah.
like if he'd be playing with a friend, there was always a struggle to get into his lesson. Until about 2 months in, he was at the beach with his friends, and it was time for his lesson. So I went 20 minutes early because I was expecting that I'd have to, you know, coax him away, pull him away. But as soon as I get there, I tell him it's time for his lesson, and he tells his friend, Arthur, I gotta go. I've got a guitar lesson. And it was only like a 3-minute drive away, but we were
Yeah.
in the car, and I was asking him like, like that's different. What's what's different today? Like usually I have to drag you there.
Mhm.
And he said, I think guitar is my destiny, and I don't want to mess it up. You know, he's 7.5 years old. So I'm like, okay, guitar is your destiny. That weekend, I spent a joyful 8 hours looking at the Billboard 100 charts from 1955 until this was 2016 at the time.